President-elect Trump respond to the Syrian crisis? Earlier this month, President Obama said to Vanity Fair he is deeply troubled by, quote, the situation in Syria, which haunts me constantly. I would say of all the things that have happened during the course of my presidency, the knowledge that you have hundreds of thousands of people who have been killed, millions who have been displaced, makes me ask myself, what might I have done differently along the course of the last 5-6 years? Let's talk about it with our panel. Carl Higbie is a former U.S. Navy SEAL. He served 2 tours in Iraq. Amber Smith is a former U.S. Army helicopter pilot who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. And Johnny Joey Jones is a retired U.S. Marine bomb technician who served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. And let me start by thanking all of you for your selfless service to this country. It is a volunteer, our Army, Marines, Air Force, everyone who's out there. We've got 3 of the branches represented today. Amber, I want to start with you. So many foreign policy hotspots around the globe. What advice would you give to the incoming administration?
Well, I think that the inaction that we've seen for the past 8 years has left the United States and the new Trump administration in quite the predicament. There are multiple facets inside Syria, including ISIS, al-Qaeda offshoots, Assad, including Russia and Iran. So I don't think it's necessarily a question of can we defeat ISIS or any of these terrorist organizations inside Syria, or can we oust Assad? The question is, what is the second and third order of effects? What happens the day after? And I think we need to look long and hard at our very recent history inside the Middle East and think about what that course of action needs to be, because they are restricted a little bit because of the involvement with Russia.
Johnny, your advice?
Absolutely. You know, my time in the Marine Corps was spent in the yo-yo. We would surge 40,000 troops to Iraq, win the Al-Anbar province, and then have a date to pull out. Same thing happened in Afghanistan. The biggest problem we have right now is that we're drawing lines in the sand and then we're letting people step over them, to use a very famous analogy President Obama used. What we need to do is clearly define a goal. We have the men and women in our military that can define the strategy, and we can execute and win once we know what we're trying to win.
Carl, I want to bring you in here. I've talked to so many people in the military who have actually left over the last few years because they felt there was confusion about what their mission was, what we were sending our young men and women into, and unfortunately a lot of good folks left the service because of that.
Correct, and this is why I'm particularly excited about a Trump presidency, because when he builds a building, he knows how many floors, how many people, what the budget is, and what the timeline is. If you ask any sitting general or admiral or anybody else involved in this war effort what any of those answers are, they can't give it to you. We have to understand that there are 6 or 7 factions, as Amber pointed out. You have Syria, you have the rebels, you have the Kurds, you have ISIS, you have Turkey, you have Iran, proxy via Russia, and then you have us. So we need to get on the same page as the superpowers here. Russia, they're bombing the rebels because that's honestly where ISIS came from. We're bombing ISIS, but we're trying to arm the Kurds and the rebels, and we're all stuck in the middle. Get on the same page, define a goal, and then we can start winning this war. But if we continue to just dump resources blindly in there without any understanding of what we're doing or what the end state is, and if we do have an intervention where we decide to overthrow Assad, we have to be committed to the fact that this may be a 100-year occupation.
Yeah, because as we know, there are consequences when you take someone out. It creates a vacuum. We've seen it again and again. All right, all 3 of you are young veterans, and we have veterans of all ages and all kinds of physical concerns, mental concerns, all kinds of needs that we have. So there are a lot of folks who want to see something radically different going on with the Department of Veterans Affairs this time around. Amber, I'll start again with you. Where can changes be made? How do you think a President Trump may do things differently?
Well, President-elect Trump has a great 10-point plan. He has outlined exactly what he wants to do at the VA, and there's 2 key takeaways from that plan. And number 1 is accountability. You cannot make a single change at the VA unless the people at the top, including the Secretary of the VA, is allowed to have the authority to hold the employees accountable. So you have to have, number 1, that accountability, and number 2, you have to have choice. There was a Gallup poll in March where 91% of Americans felt that veterans should have the choice to seek health care elsewhere, similar to Medicare, and so they want veterans to have that choice. Employees at the VA have the choice to get whatever doctor they want to, so veterans should not have it any differently. They should be allowed to choose who they want to see for their health care.
All right, Johnny, you're next.
Yeah, you know, the 10-point plan is a great campaign action. The problem is you can't legislate a cultural change. So we definitely need leaders in the VA. I'm sorry, I'm getting my audio back in my ear. But we need leaders in the VA that are willing and committed to a cultural change. You know, in the military, if a general says wear a pink shirt on Friday, that's going to happen all around the world. We can't get two regional offices in the VA in this country on the same page. We can't get the VA and the DoD medical systems to communicate to one another. And that's the kind of changes we need. We need a cultural change where they take pride in their job, but not only that, they take pride in the fact that you're not just providing a quantitative service, you're providing a service that needs to be qualitative. You need to be able to take care of these veterans and not just prescribe pain pills, but also a way that's a better quality of life. You know, currently some of the metrics that have been spouted out from Hillary Clinton and other people in the current administration talk about the amount of veterans treated, or if they were satisfied with their treatment. Handing painkillers to a veteran that's hurting may be a satisfied treatment, but it isn't a cure. It isn't something that actually helps that veteran go out, get a job, be a contributing member of his or her community. That's the type of cultural change. We can't legislate it. We've got to pick the right leaders outside the VA, bring them in, and see the culture of the VA change.
Yeah, and Carl, we're waiting to see who President-elect Trump will tap for that
right.
job.
And that's it. You know, I've spoken to a number of people, including a guy named Frank Corvino, who's on the board of the largest healthcare fund nationwide. He's also the CEO of Greenwich Hospital, and he has said this starts at the top. This starts with leadership. You need somebody who is not a bureaucrat, who can run a business. Now, also from there down, you have, as they mentioned, you have to have the ability to fire people. We need people who care, who want to be there because they want to help our veterans. And look, not all veterans. Like, I'm a veteran. I go to private healthcare because I have healthcare through a job. So you need to understand that not all veterans are going to go to the VA, but all veterans need to be cared for equally to a private sector healthcare with injuries that were sustained during combat, or if they've been retired, all that. So we cannot continue to allow these people to, these bureaucrats, to put them down as numbers, and we need to treat them as people.
Yeah, it's one thing that it seems consistently to be infuriating across party lines and everywhere else for people who want something concrete done for our veterans. Amber, Johnny, and Carl, again, thank you for joining us today and for your service to this great country.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.
Democrats winning